Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements here from Santa Monica, California. Today, May 14th, 2021. I'm back in the saddle today. Quite a spontaneous sharing. This is going to be part 3 of Unknown Futures. The angel of death has asked to dance. A little bit of an intense and graphic image. For those of you who have not tuned in, the part 1 and part 2, this is a continuation of my own, my own personal health challenge. And I've been reluctant to speak really a lot about it, but I've been encouraged by a few very intimate friends to be more transparent, to share the edge of both the circumstances and equally, on a personal level, my emotional relationship, my Dhamma relationship. In short, what am I learning from my, I want to use the word health challenge, spiritual challenge, Dhamma challenge. So welcome aboard today. Again, I didn't anticipate sharing. I've been in hospital the last couple of days, a little bit woozy and weak from a very invasive cardiovascular test called cardiogram. That they go in through your wrists and groin area and put a camera in through your veins, and you get to see the interior of your heart arteries, which I stayed quite unsedated for without anesthesia so that I could be in my own Netflix to my own heart, so to speak. So welcome aboard today. I'd like to share a little bit of the updates. I can't type very well, and I'm going back to hospital today after this talk to meet with my cardiac surgeon, the chief surgeon at UCLA Medical in Westwood, a very competent gentleman, and his team. So I hope you're well wherever you may be in the world today. A couple of days ago, I went here to UCLA Medical Santa Monica, where I underwent a procedure that's known as an angiogram. This was based upon trying to understand the corollary issues that I am faced with a month ago diagnosis here in the emergency room with what's called an acutely super enlarged, they've changed the word now, a super enlarged ascending aorta aneurysm, the largest heart artery going up to the lungs and the brain, is ready to dissect or rupture, according to surgeons who now have examined my interior more than I have mindfully examined it over 50 years. It's amazing to see visual representations of your everything with modern medicine, another issue altogether. And so I am in this discovery process of the efficacy of a very complicated open heart surgery versus a watch and wait and measure the increase in size of the aorta and other potentially complicating secondary issues that they've discovered both in the left ventricle, in the thyroid, and the lungs, and also in the spine areas, but nothing compared to the aorta. And so the aneurysm was a fascinating experience to be in an operating room with these magnificently highly trained, you hope, men and women and technicians, all in this uber refined coordination of intelligence. And no big deal, but they said, where do you want the sedation and the anesthesia? And I said, no, I really would prefer to be clear-minded with this procedure. And they were kind of like all shocked and said, you really do not want to be sedated? And I said, no, I'm a meditator. I like the fidelity of my mind, the clarity of my mind. I mean, I can deal with it. And of course, if it becomes too severe, just do what you need to do your job better without me moaning and groaning. And so that was interesting, not to take fentanyl and to take a barbiturate in order to basically go under this procedure, which was an utterly fascinating, deep visualization of the arteries of one's heart. And the good news is there's no blockages. In fact, after an hour, 20 minutes or so, they said, your arteries are like that of a well-trained 20-year-old athlete. And welcome aboard to a healthy heart, except for the left ventricle, which I'll get into a little bit. These are all very new words for me. So a little bit of the data and then a little bit of the Dhamma. The Dhamma to me is really what's being highlighted here. I've used the word gift now for the last month, and it accelerates in its radiance as a Dhamma gift. And the more I proceed down the line with medical discovery, with various issues, and whether or not surgery is what I want and how complicated it is, and it's very complicated. I'll get into that more yesterday. The cardiac nurses were very forthcoming in the 3, 4, 5 hours of recovery after this procedure. To be open-minded, to talk with me, answering any question that I had with frankness and fullness. And it was really quite a beautiful conversation, as easy as it would be to be disturbed by some of the information. But nonetheless, here we are, and it's unfolding, and I'm choosing to engage it with pragmatism, a bit of irreverent poetry. I've already started writing a new show, which I've taken the title Dead Man Walking. It's going to be super uber dark comedic gallows humor about the human condition, the planetary condition. It'll probably be a sequel to my book, Extinction X-Rated. Speaking of which, I don't know whether or not I was channeling like this book or whether it was a destiny to be made. What came first, the cart or the horse, the book or reality? I don't know. But, at the end, if you've read it, the last eighth of the book, there's this incredible final act where I am forcing myself to confront the forces of existence, the fear, the greed, the narratives of confusion and subjugation of passion and Dhamma. And I draw upon the deep inner resource that I call the divine feminine, embodied by Maitreya, the feminine expression of the Buddha to be. And I use the term, in short, Mai, M-A-I, to call upon in my darkest moments to guide me. And where do I go yesterday? To the hospital. And the first cardiac nurse that comes in that does all the vitals says, hi, my name is Mai, and I'm here to assist you in this process of knowing the interior of your heart and your arteries and helping you get to greater clarity about the decision of what to do. So feel free to ask me any question. I said, do you mind spelling that? She said, M-A-I. And it's like, okay, wow, a divine messenger yet again. And so she and I are talking, and she's revealing to me all of her expertise about hearts and about recovery and about being in the room with people who have ascending and descending and bypass and triple bypass open heart surgery. And she's speaking about the gory complexity and the likelihood of recovery, but you never know, in the intensity of the process. And she says, you ever heard of the syndrome called broken heart syndrome? And I said, no, I've only known it to be something psychological or in relationship, in my case as a heterosexual, with women. Me with women or women with me, the broken heart syndrome. She says, well, it's a real thing. And it's called Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, which is a Japanese word for an octopus trap. And they have a funnel at the top and at the bottom a big base, and the octopus goes in curiously out of wonderment to hide in darkness but can't get out. And so the octopus is trapped and they break the pot. And of course, it's the broken heart syndrome. Why and how it all gets tied together with Takotsubo cardiomyopathy as the way to define scientifically broken heart syndrome. So I went last night online and was looking at broken heart syndrome, and oh my God, all the various symptoms that I've had, from severe chest pain that brought me into the ER unit to this left ventricle that seemed to be quite inflated without any arterial blockages or plaque. But yet there's this aorta, and then I look up aortas with broken heart syndrome, and yes, broken heart syndrome, primarily to women. Why, I don't know. Maybe they feel more intimately. And I'm going like, yeah, and all the various triggers, because it's so, it's like it's considered, like in Japan, like a noble response to stress and difficulty, that you have enough empathy and compassion and love in your heart that it's that intimately associated with the perception of complexity, and stress isn't seen as a shameful or a derogatory or a negative experience in relationship to so-called feeling. And so it was another way of looking for myself here in this process, because I'm very inclined towards a non-surgical so-called cure, because there's no real cure to the physical condition. You buy so-called time. But she's telling me you could have a second aneurysm, you could have a third aneurysm, and the likelihood of these second and third aorta aneurysms are very high percentages. The statistics aren't accurate in the abstracts, but they're there, and you must consider that, Alan. And equally, within that process, anything could possibly happen with other issues, whether it be with your kidneys or your liver or other parts of the body, not to mention the shock of the surgery itself. And you're a sensitive creature. We're all sensitive creatures. You probably worked very hard meditatively to sensitize and to come down from the false throne of a kind of bravado. You began to feel, and I really began to think of this, my goodness, Mai's like this divine angel in the pre-op room, talking to me in this kind of intimate communion. And I'm going like, wow, what a gift. And here it is, meditation off the cushion, yoga off the mat, keeping alive the gift of the process, because no matter what one does, you cannot buy immortality. You cannot guarantee longevity. And so it really brought to light yet again heightened quality. Pause, Alan. I just want to reiterate, that's where I'm hanging today. I don't know about you, but the invitation is to hang there with yourself, with your family, with your partner, with your children, with your goddess, with your God, with whomever it is that you interrelate with in the most intimate ways. Elevate, engage, activate, take it higher, bhavanize the space, bodhisattva the space, bring Dhamma gift to our lives, not to buy the narrative of aging, ailing, diseased, and death. Take the death messenger out of these propagandas. And it's everywhere if you're not careful. Everyone is wanting to hit you with the neon sign of medical intervention. You will not live, Mr. Clements, if you do not commit to surgery. It is like a radiator hose ready to burst, a ticking clock, a fuse. It will burst, it will burst. You will die an ugly, searing, painful death within 20 minutes. And it's like, that is not propaganda, that's reality. But they're being so compassionate about that. But nonetheless, wow, panic porn. Unbelievable images of ruptures, burst, anguish, suffering. And I'm going like, I don't buy it. I am not going to live my life in the prediction of pain and suffering and fear. Yep, get smart, Alan. They are there to compassionately intervene on the possibility, the likelihood of you surviving surgery and living your best life, although you may have a second or a third or kidney or stroke or whatever it is that could happen as a complication as a result of the blunt surgery. Not to mention you're already of a certain age where anything could happen even if you were perfectly healthy. That's a very deep invitation for non-surgery. And okay, non-surgery, as I see it, non-so-called elective intervention at this time is not saying non-surgery at some other time. It's saying I want to highlight the Dhamma gift. And that's the main point I want to make to myself. And thank you for allowing me to be absolutely true to myself here. A lot of what I'm sharing today, and I didn't anticipate talking today, was really about my need to process the edge. And I can process it very well with my few friends that I talk to, but I also want to process it with me in the morning of the day of my life where I'm meeting the surgeon who I might choose to commit to surgery with and that team at 4 p.m. today in Westwood and UCLA Medical, where a decision will have to be made soon. What will you do, Mr. Clements, with the condition that you've been diagnosed with? In-breath, out-breath. I want to be as clear-minded as possible. The gift for me right now is, I would call it vigilance with mindfulness. I've been vigilant for many decades and many years in meditation and in various places of complexity, but this is really an amazing, gifted moment where I know even going into the hospital, coming home from the hospital, drinking a glass of wine last night and sipping it and having a candle burn and see the light and the radiance and hearing quiet music from the cello. And then all of a sudden you feel the silence of the space and you feel your own body, in-breath, out-breath, the heightened mindful vigilance. Every second is tempered against the reality of mortality. No guaranteed except mortality is exactly what we encounter. Every breath, in-breath, out-breath, every sound, every smell, every taste, every thought is tempered with mortality. Life in death, death in rebirth, rebirth in mortality, nanosecond by nanosecond. Where is your Dhamma here, Alan? Right in your own heart and mind, with the person right in front of you, you and her and it simultaneously, in breath. So this quality of non-postponement, also the quality to decathex from the seduction of cultural, spiritual, medical, political narratives that if you buy into even a little bit, longevity over quality, longevity, gamble over longevity over quality. Don't see them as separate. Quality can be done with longevity. In either way you look, it's like bargaining with time and a roulette wheel. It could be either a roulette wheel on the green and red with dice or a Russian roulette with a bullet to your head and only 6 cylinders. It depends on the risk factors. But take the risk out of it. Take fear. That's the mantra in my life right now. Take fear and activate metta, self-respect, self-dignity, self-realization, peace, clarity, discernment, fearlessness. Take it higher and higher and higher. Another aspect of the gift for me in this circumstance, just to be very transparent, is a heightened priority, I would call it. And it's been accumulative over the last several years especially. A heightened priority for, what would I call it, of the wisdom-freedom equation. It's very easy to be involved in a spiritual, yogic, psychological, social, political narrative that is somewhat intelligent, and yet it doesn't really have its mindful hand and palm on the pulse of a characteristic, a state of mind. It's not as if you're really playing in the artistic, aesthetic, mosaic, collage dance of a co-creative state of consciousness with context, with person. Authenticity is compromised based on interesting. We lose intimacy for the idea of being engaged. And we play there at times, but where I'm going right now in myself is the real play in emotional aesthetics. I want to heighten the quality of beauty in the circumstance, and beauty for me is found in two basic words: wisdom and freedom. So, being in wisdom, what does that mean? If you're not in time, not in location, not in gender, not in posture, not in pretense, not in projection, we're in the fidelity of a felt experience of mind made real on the palette of consciousness, mind states in the field of consciousness, and sensations that become predominant in the field of consciousness in the body. Mind and physical phenomena within the field of mind and body. And we bring a wisdom filter to that, which sees the characteristic of something that is uniquely that quality. Compassion, the ability to feel a sense of resident intimacy with the object of one's compassion, self or other. A resident fidelity of empathy. The quality of patience, feeling the felt texture of a non-postponed willingness to engage complexity without the need to bring a restless anxiety there. Decathex from restlessness and anxiety and situate in the complexity with mindful poise that rebalances, called khanti or patience, staying sustained in the phenomena to learn over conquest. These states of mind to me are the real gift that I'm really seeing in myself right now when I play with the world of wisdom over the narrative over health and longevity. Where can I bring clarity to the unique characteristics? And then it's so easy to overlook. I know when I was in the operating room the other day, perfectly awake, with about 10 people in the room in this high-tech environment, all of a sudden they asked, of course, before they begin the operation, "Do you really want to do this without sedation, Mr. Clements, and anesthesia?" And I said, "Yes." And it said, they made the comment, "So you can deal with having a heart attack without sedation." Really playing high stakes. And I'm saying, namaste. I mean, if you've got some psilocybin, I'd prefer that rather than sedation. I'd like to be more awake. I want to feel the nanotechnology of my own mind and body configuring with this high-tech environment. I want to deconsolidate the idea of someone who may live or may die. I'm saying this to myself. I want to play in the wisdom dance in this room, not in the longevity dance. If I'm going to pass or be reborn, I want it to be on the terms of my mindful engagement to what I call, and what's been called, the Tilakkhana, the three ultimate characteristics of all phenomena. This is so overlooked in one's meditation Dhamma practice. We live in the concepts of things, and we often negate and neglect the not underlying, but the infused characteristics that govern all causality. Everything is a cognitive castle of conditions. Hold on to me, the second noble truth of the Buddha's awakening. Grasp on to the phenomenology of mind and matter. Grasp on to sense desires. Grasp on to sights and sounds. Grasp on to concepts. Grasp on to identity. Grasp on to rites and rituals. Grasp on to countries and notions of time. Grasp on to gender. Grasp on to anything in the world of conceptual phantasm illusioning, and you will suffer. Release into the wisdom of anicca, causality, emptiness of subjectivity, and the understanding that it cannot be controlled, and to overcome the dukkha filter, and all of a sudden you're in a dance of evanescence without centrality, and you're playing in what I would call the wisdom freedom dance within the narrative of the conventional. In breath, out breath, neither wish to live nor fear dying. Stay awake, Alan. I was hearing my teacher talk to me in the operating room. Do not sedate. Do not take the terrible Mara substance of fentanyl and a barbiturate. And they were explaining to me, with the barbiturate, with a glee, you can still talk, but you'll have no memory of what happened or what you said. Robbing the mind of mindfulness, the antithesis of the gift. And I'm not confronting or challenging the medical industry or the psychotherapy industry, the pharmacology industry. I'm just saying that if you're going to be a yogi, Alan, and you're going to enter this conundrum of so-called life and death in this ascending aorta and the various other complexities that you have that are interrelated to it, do it with clockwork orange eyes wide open. Take it as a liberating event. Go to the nibbanification of shared space. Take conditions of grasping and fear and attachment. Keep your meditation practice, in short, Alan, so active that you're not being handicapped by anything. I hope I'm making the point to myself, not to you. Do not be handicapped by anything. If there's ever a time to get to the plate, analogous to my baseball metaphors and analogies, and if there's ever a point in your career where you know that you have everything in you to do what's required to take your consciousness to that ball and put it over the fence, win the game on your own terms of conscience and mindfulness and samvega and wisdom, and deliver the freedom of mind that has defined 50 years of Dharma spiritual journeying. Don't back down now. I hope you're with me on this. I'm not trying to convince you. I'm not trying to convince me. But listen, if Dhamma has meant anything, it's really to embrace these are heavenly messengers. Old age, aging, disease, death. These are so radical as not only natural, they're inevitable in every second of interbeing of existence. Should we bring the panya quality. Pause right here. On April 11th, I was packed, ready to go, thinking, where's my next destination? I was ready to do ramble on. Here I come. And suddenly, it's interrupted through severe pain, emergency room, diagnostics. You have a fatal illness. It could explode at any second. We recommend immediate surgery, although it's complex. please, Mr. Clements, consider longevity in your life. Yes, yes, yes. But really, in that, my life has been interrupted, okay? No. No, 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 no. And herein lies, okay, got it. Cultural propaganda, the devil and Mara, information laundering, attachment to concepts, longevity, time, health, death, fear, being associated with pain and the unpleasant, not getting what you want when you want it, narratives, propaganda, misinformation, mindful, relax, do not hold on to me or you will suffer, wisdom, freedom. And I said, no, I am in Dhamma retreat. My monastery is everywhere, all times, all states, all postures, all places, all degrees of complexity, all context, all states, all the time, bringing qualities of mindfulness and composure and presence and ethical courage and no doubt spiritual courage for all of us to face mortality and the unpleasant, in-breath, out-breath. But we're all in this together, all within a few seconds apart. Even our precious Mother Earth will be engulfed 200 million years, if not sooner, by our beloved Sun, where there'll be no Earth. Talk about an existential moment. Set aside 5 previous extinctions. We're in the 6th. There'll be 50 more asteroids heading to Earth. Oh my God. Every one of us are in the gift. And this is where I want to go. Come dance with me, angel of death. I will seduce you. No, I will love you. I will tantrify you. I will elevate the dance into something so liberating that you yourself will weep with grace, that you have seen the face of your own denial and the face of your own fear, because I'm only going to love you as the face of my unrecognized shadow. I see you, Mara, because you're in here, not out there. They're delusional concepts: permanence, self, time, gender, city, apocalypse, genocides, Buddhism, awareness, mindfulness, consciousness, enlightenment, words, words, words. The fidelity, right, of the emotionality. But what is the wisdom? I really invite you. What is wisdom in your life? Not insight. What is the actualization, the embodiment of wisdom in present time phenomena with that which really matters to you? Where are you storing your wisdom? And what is it in you that you will do to release that wisdom so that you live in fidelity to anicca, impermanence? Right there, pause with me. One of my favorite discourses of the Buddha, so many of them, where the Buddha and someone, a man or a woman, are living in shared space, and one or the other are co-creating cognitive figures between them that transcend time and program based on cognitive impulsions to 90 years in 1 minute, a face of life. Vimala and Visakha, all of a sudden she sees an image of herself, or a woman aging 90 years in 60 seconds. Imagine if we had that ability right now through an increased intensity of mindfulness. In Samvega, that we're living in the radiance of impermanence. Everything is a psilocybin cognitive, mental, psychedelicized, mindful castle of change. The photons, the neutrons, the neurons, all the ecosystems are illuminating with this causality of arising and disappearing, arising and disappearing. That to me is the wisdom filter on a felt level. Is that where you want to live? Well, yes, because death is real. This mouth and mind and body and phenomenology will no longer move in a particular instant of time which we cannot predict seemingly, except that every moment is programmed on cessation. And only if conditions arise for the re-arising of cessation do new conditions arise. The gift of having luminosity to take fear and death and aging out of the paradigm of shared space. That to me is a very, very special gift that I'm trying my very best right now to not anesthetize, not sedate, increase the luminosity, my teachers would often say, increase the luminosity of your own consciousness. That is what life is as a spiritual journey, not the accumulation of beliefs. The luminosity of the characteristics of consciousness and form, to know them, to see them, and to understand their behavior. What is their behavior? They arise based on causes and conditions. They cease based on causes and conditions. These causes and conditions are therefore impermanent, not subject to control, therefore intrinsically unsatisfying. Hold on to any phenomena, and there will be the perception of dukkha or suffering. Relax, engage, release, and see the dance as separate from attachment and fear. And right there, I don't know about you, but the propaganda of longevity is very embedded. I can tell you, just having a brief window into the hospital the last few days, and again going back today, but yesterday being in pre-op operating room and in post-operating room, there's a lot of carnage in there. And these nurses and doctors are there, bless them, just gems. And these two spectacular cardiac nurses who were appointed to be in my recovery team really invited dialogue. And rare do you get to talk about things that they know and that they're there to share unvarnished, compassionate, hard-edged truths to you. And I actually had the courage, and it took a little bit of time to rise into that courage, to talk to me about what does it look like in the operating room if one is undergoing aneurysm surgery. And that was a bit of a harrowing discussion to not hold back with my questions, and they weren't holding back with their answers, of the intensity in the operating theater. And I said, does it ever get to like, it's already a kind of an emergency moment and you're on life support. Does it ever get like critical where there's a kind of 911 call within the emergency? And they say, oh yes. It's considered a really intense, anything could go wrong, and we are as prepared as humanly possible for those forms of complexity to intervene surgically and scientifically and medically. But yes, it's very intense in there. And you have every right to understand the second and third potentials for aneurysms if you do undergo surgery, which really was very intense to think of now life being measured by a very different set of conditions as it was before April 11th. The future had more of an unlimited feel to it. Now it feels that it's been immeasurably shortened. And that's been a very challenging, surreal concept to get your head around. No matter what you do, you're already graded by horrific circumstances with a rupture or dissection, which is a whole set of gallows jokes that I could come up with, but it may turn your stomach. How they're willing to sedate you for an operation to check out your heart, but they'll offer you no mitigating emergency substances, even a poison dart if you're at home and all of a sudden your aorta dissects and you're writhing there in pain for 4 or 5 minutes before you die. They don't even prescribe, high doses of morphine. They don't give you helium mats. They don't even give your family, poison darts that they could shoot from a distance to hit your body, not to be seen as committing homicide. It's just insane. No, Mr. Clements, there's nothing that we can provide to mitigate the pain of dissection or rupture. And you go into all these, okay, I've got to face, we all have to face, my brothers in Burma right now being faced with rape and torture and persecution and an assassination and the ongoing horror of the decimation of democracy and human rights. If you dare even sing a song to celebrate freedom, that ongoing unremitting evil, the oppression of that Mara-esque horror, this is nothing. And I'm thinking, rise up, the gift, take fear out of time. Do not give fear the projection hope of anticipating it conquering you. See that phantasm for what it is. Increase your mindfulness, increase your samvega, increase your dedication to wisdom, increase your dedication to an unpostponed freedom. How often Mahasi Sayadaw, especially U Pandita, would say, be ready for anything, no heroics. Be in vigilant, balanced awareness of the flow of phenomena in all postures, all times, with whatever you're doing. Take the posture out of meditation. Bring in and employ the quality of present time presence with the phenomena out of the posture. Take it out of the idea of meditator, out of the idea of time, out of the idea of practitioner, out of the idea of samsara. Just consciousness and the awareness of consciousness and the state of consciousness and the contents of consciousness at the sense doors arising in causal conditions, being aware of their arising and their passing away, being aware of the dyad of arising simultaneous to their disappearance, being aware of anicca, impermanence, being aware of impermanence, being aware of even the awareness of impermanence as impermanent, being aware of even the impermanence of emptiness as awareness of emptiness, being aware of dukkha and the impermanence of the awareness of dukkha and anicca and anatta, being aware of the passing away of freedom and wisdom and phenomenology, being aware of the emptiness and the silence and the nibbana and the freedom of being, taking the death out of presence, taking the narrative of time and aging and illness. All those phantasms, Alan, drop them. They're illusions. To reiterate for myself here, the gift of this process is just the ongoing elevation of the word samvega, the gift of a more respectful immediacy to the beauty of beauty, a more intensified intimacy and conviction into the mindful, authentic, intimate application of heart in context to complexity. Decode that complexity and the gift of release. The gift of release, in-breath, out-breath. Do not hold the past into the present. Do not anticipate the future in the present. Be, abide, kiss, release. Be, abide, kiss, release. And therein lies, for myself, reiterating the immediacy of Dhamma, the grace of Dhamma over longevity, the grace of mindful intelligence over the projection of prosperity, the continuity of privilege, the continuity of safety, the continuity of youth, the continuity of wealth or beauty, the continuity of power. The deeper power to relinquish those very deeply embedded propagandas. I would call them existential misinformation. They exist, but they're illusory. They're a mirage. They're a phantasm. They don't tend towards edification. They don't have nutrient. They're vapid, vacuous, empty of substance, anatta. Therefore, dukkha, insipid. They cannot provide the taste of freedom except through the release and the relaxation of their illusory nature. That gift, the immediacy of meditation as a way, a vocation of engaging self in context to self, self in context to denial of self, self in context to selflessness, self in context to wisdom, self in context to other. Let me close with this. The broken-hearted syndrome, I smile because I consider it a badge of honor. Just like being blacklisted by the dictatorship in Burma for 17 years, tragic as it was and what it represented, to speak out in my own little way for the good people of Burma and their struggle for freedom, but to be recognized as an insult to dictatorship and an enemy of dictatorship was a badge of honor. Being canceled by Mara is a badge of honor. Confronting longevity and the propaganda of health, non-aging, I'm proud of that. And right now, the immediacy of Dhamma, I feel the radiance of that immediacy. All times, all places, all contexts, all postures. May I invite you to invite me, to invite our tribe, to invite our friends. If we're learning anything together here in this present time phenomena, with masks coming off, with the world so-called returning to a heightened trans-abnormal, what will we do to celebrate the learning and the victory of our own Dhamma world? How well will we kiss? How well will we love? What will we do with the preciousness of a full breath? How well will we give back to the future of life, the unborn? What will we do to create miracles and magic in our Dharma life? How deeply connected will we be to the fidelity, in the immediacy, in the intimacy, the tantrification, the deep, deep sharpening, the radical trust of our beauty, our radical willingness to confront the propaganda of Mara, old age, disease, and death, and prosperity, and privilege, questioning dictatorship everywhere. Let us rise together, take our Dhamma higher and higher and higher. The Dalai Lama, when I met him a number of times, back in the first time in it wasn't the first time, in 1989, not far from here, when he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, a conference, he was asked by many thousands of people that came to be with him at that time, who is your hero? And he recommended, listen up, my friends. In Tibet, I have a man who is known by the weeper. He cries all the time. He's a dedicated bodhisattva. he does what he can to put himself in the mind and the body of other and feel and resonate with their compassion to help them and uplift them from their pain. I'm paraphrasing. And he's telling a group of psychotherapists that this man, Weeper, is my spiritual, Dhammic inspiration. And as he went on to explain how the Weeper would see a man or a woman or a young girl from Syria, in my language, who is bent over and hungry and emaciated and traumatized. And the Weeper would practice his empathy and get down on his metaphorical knees and look into the eyes of the child and try to bring his own ability to extend beyond himself, empathy in action, embody the other as self, and to stay there and to situate as a practice in the mind and the body of another. And I'm going like, oh wow, talking to my friend Mai in the hospital, my divine feminine angel on the operating table, communing. She was communing with me, putting herself in my own mind and body, allowing me to ask any question at all about surgery, about fear, about recovery, about emergency. And I was going like, what a gift this is, not the narrative of the information, but the gift of seeing your compassion, Angel Mai. I hope you're with me on this. It's like it's so easy to miss these teachings for the sake of longevity and surgery and success in my body, my health. But the Dhamma connectivity is the gift. And the Dalai Lama is talking about the Weeper. And the Weeper then would cry in the face of the Syrian refugee, displaced by American bombs and the world's callousness. In breath, out breath. And the Dalai Lama would say, the Weeper just cried. And I'm thinking yesterday in the hospital about the Weeper. So much suffering. I think about my fellow sisters and brothers in Burma. I think of Dasu, Owen Tain, thousands of others that have been detained. I'm trying to listen to them right now, like the Weeper did to the young girl, to empathize. And I'm thinking of how Mai told me about the broken heart syndrome, Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, the octopus, broken heart syndrome, a shock to the heart that leaves one feeling as if you've had a heart attack, where there is absolutely clear indication of vascular changes. Broken heart syndrome, people can die from it. And here the Dalai Lama is, in my recollection, telling an audience of thousands of psychotherapists that my hero is someone who has a broken heart. And I'm going like, how easy it is to imbue broken heart with inability to know boundaries, to be overwhelmed with anxiety and stress, all these negative, pejorative destinations of interpretation, when in fact, I'm thinking the road to compassion, I'm not trying to bring accolades to my broken heart, but I'm going like, wow, the cultural narrative is that you feel too much. And here, the Dalai Lama's hero is someone, as he explains to the audience, the reason he's my hero, at least he said the Weeper can cry. And I have a hard time crying in the face of suffering. I'm going like, what an amazingly different way to interpret perception about the nature of the world. Now, to me, I hear that story told over decades, being retold, being embodied in my own little way in the hospital, and having the nurse embody it in her big way with me, is what a gift to make gifts out of the evolution of beautiful states of mind over the psychopathology of denigrating and psychopathologizing people as having something gone wrong in their own internal inability emotionally and psychologically because it's too much stress, too much anxiety, too much fear, too much empathy. There could be too much compassion. And I can imagine here the weeper continues his journey of compassion and has overwhelming chest pains, and others tell him, you must get an EKG, weeper, and they've diagnosed a broken heart syndrome and an acutely enlarged ascending aorta, and they want to do surgery to allow him to live on, to cry, and develop his bodhisattva commitment as the weeper. In his mind, he's probably thinking, heartbreak central is the success, that his compassion exceeds the anatomical, biological strength of the body, the psychic dimension of enlargement of states of consciousness, right? My heart is so big with love, metta for all beings, in that little old ventricle. It has to burst at confines. It's got to be a message somewhere in here. I know I'm struggling to make sense, but thank you for allowing me the chance to process my own edge. I'm off to hospital to consult yet again with one of my cardiac surgeons, and then I will have a week of tests next week and have another consultation with my other cardiac surgeon, compare the results, sit in high fidelity conversation with my heart, and come to a greater clarity of not only the gift of what's going on in the miracle of Dhamma, but a practical decision of either to commit to surgery, which I strongly doubt, or postpone, live into the future of a highly creative, constructed Dhamma field retreat environment, either on Maui or Bali or both in the coming weeks and coming months. And then, if still alive, to get another CT scan and see if it's grown. But during that period of a month, 2 or 3, to invest every bit of nutrient, every bit of psychic connection, every bit of heart, every bit of miracle, every bit of Dhamma, every bit of healing, every bit of trans-psychedelic psilocybin awakening, every bit of sensitivity, every bit of ascension, every bit of holiness, every bit of prayer, every bit of everything I've ever known to be valuable into my heart and into my life to create a high fidelity moment. This is the ascension in this life, as U Pandita would say. Take death out of life, rebirth into the future, rebirth into the present. Constantly beautify, take it higher, displace the kilesas, displace the darkness. Flowers open based upon light, water, nutrient, and minerals, not by examining the darkness between the petals. Do not believe the narratives of darkness. Overcome them through the brightening of the luminosity of your Dhamma freedom. So from my heart to yours, thank you for tuning in today. I hope to see you tomorrow, Saturday, and onward Sunday. Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for texting, and hope to see you tomorrow. Have a great day. From my heart to yours. Thank you.